gracias a todos por venir. Hemos tenido un día espectacular de regatas y en primera parte de la noche queríamos hablar un poco acerca de lo que fue la definición del ranking del 2 y 3 y premiar lo que fue el circuito de temporada 2016. Esto es un video que les he pasado que se ha grabado la regata. No está con audio, disculpen. Puedo cantar mientras tanto. Bueno, les puedo ir hablando un poco. La idea de No, ya, en serio. La idea de esto es filmar los campeonatos importantes y que se haga una especie de highlights de las regatas, en la cual se pueda ver claramente, tácticamente, lo que hemos hecho, darnos cuenta de errores, cosas que se han hecho bien y ir avanzando un poco más desde un punto de vista más educativo. Esta es la idea es filmar la partida, las primeras patas y la llegada, ¿no? Bueno, en términos, la idea es que los resúmenes se hagan de 5 minutos más o menos y que no solamente sea un resumen corto, sino que sea algo que sirva didácticamente para analizar las regatas y mejorar maniobras o decisiones que se toman en el agua. Aparte que obviamente va a quedar muy lindo y se va a poder utilizar tanto para el club en su biblioteca, la federación y todo lo que necesitemos para conseguir auspicios. Entonces esta iniciativa está pensada y quería mostrársela a ustedes un poco para que tengan una idea de lo que se viene trabajando. Ahorita sí creo, hay una cosa, no sé si le pueden decir para que suba un poquito el aire, que se hace calor, ahorita sí está. Lo bueno de estas tomas es que en realidad podemos darnos cuenta de ciertos detalles, como por ejemplo van a ver más adelante, que pueden ser para después de los entrenamientos, analizar y poder tomar en práctica y mejorar rápidamente cosas que no nos damos cuenta. ¿No se me escucha bien? Ahí sí. Perdón, disculpe. Sí. Ahí estamos. Explico un poco. Ese es el primer sotavento. Si estamos entrando, viene a entrar Matías con su equipo en la boya de Barlovento. Bueno, esas últimas 3 regatas definieron todo lo que fue el circuito de temporada, que fue todo lo que se hizo en 4 meses. Y ahora la idea es empezar a premiar y yo voy a nombrar a la gente que ganó las regatas desde el circuito 1, el circuito 2 y el circuito 3, rápidamente. Coincidentemente con la maniobra voy a empezar a nombrar a la gente que venga a recibir su diploma a la mejor tripulación juvenil en el circuito de temporada 2016. Ariana Fernández, Blanca Ayala y Paula Santos, por favor, vengan aquí a hablar. Y póngase con la foto ahí. Vamos a checar la foto.
Ah, ¿todos dicen lo mismo?
Sí, sí, para ustedes. La voy a bajar porque estoy aquí arriba suyo, fue horrible. Listo. Toma, dárselo un poquito. En el tercer puesto del circuito de temporada 2016, Enrique Granja con su tripulación, Fernando Amador y Alfredo Escobar. Por eso tenías que venir, Quique. Gracias, Dios. Vamos a enseñar, toma los 3. La costa. Ahí estamos ya en la última pata antes de llegar. Como ven, a la izquierda está Matías, en el centro viene Nicolás y a la derecha viene Jonathan. Les dije que hagan eso y la partida también. Estamos mejorando eso, no hay que trabajar. ¿Sí? O sea, en realidad, si logramos lograr las tomas correctas, en el timing correcto, del dron no se va a quedar sin batería, no se va a dañar y sale 10 minutos, baja y son las cosas puntuales. Se puede hacer todo, como un America's Cup casi. Ok. Vicecampeones del circuito de temporada 2016, por favor pasa adelante Julio Vélez, su tripulación, Eduardo Viteri, Ignacio Cordobés. Dale. Eduardo, sí, de Dios mío, lo que es la SIC. Pónganse la foto, chicas, acá. La perseverancia. Toma, chuelo. Vale recalcar que el nuevo concepto de los rankings, los circuitos y todo esto, con la nueva forma de medir los puntos, es que podamos lograr que se premie no solamente a los que quedan mejor en los campeonatos, sino a los que son más constantes y que participan, porque realmente los que hacen la clase son los que vienen cada fin de semana a navegar y que no siempre quedan campeones, que la luchan, que están todos los fines de semana. Entonces, gracias a esas personas tenemos la clase como está. Gracias. A ver, y el puesto número 1 está arreglado. Campeones del circuito de temporada 2016, Jonathan Martinetti, Juan Rafael Santos y Francisco Almeida. No está ninguno de los dos. ¿O le tomo la foto después? No, le tomo la foto después que vengan. En serio. Pero ven, pues. Ah, está colado. Como campeón.
A la refri.
A la refri, toma. A ver, también es importante recalcar que aparte del diploma, que no tiene gran valor como lo podrán ver, es importante porque en la parte de abajo del landing bar vamos a poner una placa donde va a estar el campeón del ranking anual y los campeones de cada circuito, de los 3 circuitos anuales, que son el de temporada, el de verano y el de campeones. El de campeones básicamente porque está nacional y distrito juntos, y es el final. Y se definen las últimas regatas ahí, el campeonato en general. Bueno, entrando ya al tema de la clínica, agradecerle infinitamente a David que está aquí. David Starck, que es un ex campeón mundial, un gran velerista, por favor un aplauso gigante para él. Agradecer también a María Belén y a Claudio que vinieron desde Perú para correr la clínica con nosotros. De pie para que los saluden. Claudio y María Belén, por favor. Y para continuar con esto, por favor, José Rafael Lecaro, que va a dar unas palabras de parte de la Federación Ecuatoriana de Vela. Muchísimas gracias a la Federación y muchas gracias a Salinas Club también, ¿no?
Muy buenas noches a todos. A nombre de la Federación Ecuatoriana de Vela, FEVELA, quiero transmitirles el gusto que tenemos de ser parte de esta clínica de vela que va a ser dada por, como dijo Juan Rafael, por un ex campeón mundial, por David Starck. Además, en lo personal, me encanta ver lo viva que está la clase Lightning, ¿no? Yo diría que la clase Lightning es la única clase de vela en el Ecuador que por ya casi 60 años se ha mantenido continuamente y gracias a ustedes está ahora más viva que nunca. Me encanta ver que tenemos navegantes femeninos, masculinos, juveniles, tenemos seniors, masters, tenemos, ¿cómo se llama? Tenemos supermasters y dinosaurios de mi edad también hay. Eso es súper bueno, así que felicitaciones. Esta clínica, si bien nos vamos a aprovechar todos de ella, todos vamos a poder aprender de ella, es parte de un trabajo que se viene haciendo algunos meses con el Salinas Yacht Club, la clase y FEVELA, que tiene por objetivo garantizar la mejor preparación que puedan tener nuestros representantes en el próximo Campeonato Mundial Juvenil que va a haber. Y en ese sentido, el agradecimiento de la Federación Ecuatoriana de Vela al Salinas Yacht Club, esta que es la Casa de la Vela, que presta contingente humano, toda su infraestructura, financiamiento, y sin la cual no existiría la vela en el Ecuador. A David Starck también agradecerle por su generosidad y las ganas que tiene de compartir con nosotros, y sobre todo a Juan Rafael Santos. Juan Rafael es el verdadero gestor y el hombre que ha logrado que esto ocurra. Y Juan Rafael, tú eres el ejemplo de que cuando una clase tiene un comodoro con tu entusiasmo y tu trabajo, y cuando una clase tiene el entusiasmo de los navegantes, todo se puede lograr. Y se consigue que las instituciones colaboren con ella. Así que muchas gracias, felicitaciones y cuenten con nosotros. A propósito, el siguiente objetivo que ya hay que empezar a trabajar es el mundial que se va a correr acá. Así como quisiéramos tener un campeón mundial juvenil, trabajemos juntos para ver si logramos un campeón mundial de line en categoría seniors. Gracias.
Bueno, vamos a recibir a David, por favor. Ya aquí la clínica cambia a ser en inglés, así que por favor cambien el cassette.
Should I talk into this thing, or am I live out here?
No, you're not live. That's for the.
Aha. Thank you. I don't know any Spanish, so you're going to have to bear with me for a few minutes. Before we talk about some of my observations while out sailing today, I wanted to mention a couple of things specially targeted toward the junior sailors, the youth teams that are here. I'm from the Buffalo Canoe Club, and like the Salinas Yacht Club, we put a precedence, a paramount on the youth sailors. I mean, really, the class, the future of the class, the Lightning class, lies not with myself or Juan or old people like us. It's for the youth. It is critically important. And I want to say that because you're so close to it, you might not see it. What you're doing here at the Salinas Yacht Club, fostering not only your youth sailing, but the Lightning class, is number one, it's very important. And number two, you are admired by the rest of the rest of the world, but certainly in North America. Salinas has a fantastic reputation in the Lightning class, and it is the main reason I was very glad to be asked to come here for the weekend. But the main reason I really wanted to come is because I love what you're doing here in Salinas. So I just want, especially the youth sailors, to appreciate what those who have come before you have laid out for you. You have boats available. You have great mentors here of all ages to help you, and I wouldn't take that for granted. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. So I just really wanted to say that you should be proud of what you're doing here. You have a great heritage in Salinas, and this summer you're going to have a fantastic Youth World Championship with many countries represented. And then next November of 2017, I can tell you there's going to be many, many sailors from around the world coming here to participate in the World Championship, including myself. So it's going to be great. So good job. So what I thought I would talk about a little bit today, I know it's not that late for you all, but for someone like me from North America, you know how it is. We all start going to bed soon. You guys just get going. But I thought tomorrow morning, before we go sailing, there's on the agenda is some more clinic work here. And my thought is to take this whiteboard out into the downstairs, and we can do a little bit more of this tomorrow when you're awake, and because it's been a long day. But I just want to talk a little bit about some of the observations. Oh, that's a good picture. Some of my observations that I saw today while on the powerboat. My first observation is I was very impressed with how all 12 boats were being sailed. I mean, that was my first impression. I thought, wow, everyone is sailing the boats efficiently and sailing the boats properly. So I was very pleased to see that. I just broke down 3 different things we'll talk about tonight. And then if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. My main observations on your setup of the boats upwind were most people, I thought the wire tension is a difficult thing to get just right on a Lightning. It's easy to know when you have too much wire on, because when you have too much wire on, the forestay sometimes S's through the sail. The harder part is when you don't have enough wire on. That's difficult for your eye to recognize that. When the wire's too loose, if it's too loose by this much or that much, you can't see. It's too difficult to see that. So my recommendation is, when you come to a leeward mark, to pull almost too much wire on. And then when you go upwind, it's always easier to ease a little wire than it is to pull wire on. It's a simple thing. And another way to complement that is, if you mark your wire out, mark your rope, mark your line. That way you don't have to guess every time when you come to the leeward mark. You just pull the wire on to the mark. The other thing I noticed, which this picture depicts here, is, and I know that many of you are using a little bit older sails, so some of this is inherent in the sail, meaning the sail is kind of stretched. But I noticed a lot of times the outhaul not being pulled on enough, the Cunningham not being tight enough. I mentioned in the parking lot, or in the dry sail area, the Lightning, the sailboat, the sail plan of a Lightning is a very underpowered sail plan. So the sail makers build the sails with a lot of shape in the sails. And they do that because they know we have the ability to pull backstay on, to flatten the sail, and there's many other little ways to do so. But when you're out hiking and you have a lot of shape in the sail, that ends up actually being slow. You want the sail shape. If the wind were a color that you can see the wind, you want that wind exiting the back of the mainsail very efficiently, like on the wing of an airplane. And when you have a setup like this, the wind coming off the leech would be spinning, and that's slow. So this part of the mainsail down here, you want to very much make sure you're getting that as flat as you can when you're in conditions like that. The other, I wrote down depower tools, ways to depower the boat. I know the three girls weigh probably maybe not even 300 pounds out there compared to the boat I was on, and when we have a little bit more weight. So for you girls, to depower the boat was much more important. And I think it helped when you lowered the Traveler. It felt better, I think. Whenever it's difficult to steer the boat, when the boat feels like it wants to head up and you have a lot of helm, you need to do that right away. And I think when you did that, at least to us, it looked a lot better. On the downwind sailing, what we noticed the most, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Before we go on, what would you say, what would be your first tool to depower? What would be your...
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Speaking of tools to depower, you have a backstay, you have a Traveler, you have a Cunningham, you can move your jib leads. There's many things to do. The first thing I would do, if you feel like you have a lot of helm, is I would just drop the Traveler. Well, I'll back up. I would make sure that my outhaul's tight, Cunningham is on to take the wrinkles out. Assuming the sail plan, enough wire tension and cloth tension. So assuming the sails, you've pulled on to flatten the sails, like most of you did today. To me, I would just drop the Traveler maybe 2 inches. And that's just enough to take that edge off, to take that pressure on the helm. And then I would pull backstay on after that. So outhaul, Cunningham, the wire and cloth, and then once you're sailing along in that space, Traveler down maybe just 2 inches. That's all it takes to be able to take helm, reduce your helm. On the downwind sailing, yes, sir. Yeah, I should mention the main sheet. That's probably, I neglected to mention the main sheet. And actually, the main sheet, I really neglected to mention the main sheet because that's arguably one of the most important things. The main sheet is really your gas pedal when you're sailing the Lightning. I did today because I wasn't used to the boat, but I rarely cleat my main sheet. Rather, I spend a lot of time moving it in and out, maybe 1 or 2 inches as I sail the boat through the water. Similar to what we were doing today when I sailed the boat with the jib. Where are we? Oh yeah, with the jib. In and out, all day long. Each time we did any maneuver, we were always adjusting the jib. I was doing the same thing with the mainsail. I'm glad you mentioned that because really those are the most important. You've heard the phrase ease, hike, trim. When you get a puff of wind like today, instead of the boat heeling over and then you trying to hike it down. When you get a puff, you want to ease, then hike, and then trim. Not heel, hike, and then have the boat rock back and forth. The angle of heel that the boat is on, the best you can, you want to keep that angle of heel always at the same level, at the same angle of heel. And I was trying to do that today when we were sailing, and just move our weight and move the sails and just try to keep the rudder from not moving around. One way it helps me is many times I put the rudder on my leg, my tiller, I put my tiller on my leg just so I could feel it, making sure I'm not moving it around too much. Thanks for mentioning that. That arguably is probably the most important, would be the main sheet. When we were sailing downwind today, most people, not just in this fleet, anywhere I go, sail with too much vang on. Sail with the vang too tight. When you're sitting in the boat looking up, it's hard to notice because when the mainsail's all the way out, you can't get the boom 90 degrees to the boat because the lower shroud stops it. So because the boom's not out all the way, it's hard to tell that if the vang is too tight. If you think it might be too tight, it probably is. Today, probably almost at no time did you really need any vang. Much like a laser where you like that leech to pump, the lightning's the same way. You want to have having the vang looser than too tight is better. And here, most of the time, you're sailing in under 12 knots, 8 to 12 knots. And in 8 to 12 knots, I would say you want almost no vang. 12, 13 knots, maybe just a little bit, but most people sail with too much vang. And then the mainsail, even on your boat, it's hard to get that the mainsail all the way out because the main sheet stops. And on your boat with that piece of shock cord that holds the traveler up, it doesn't allow me to get the traveler down to leeward to ease more main. So,
David, I have a question there. I'm not using too much swing. What I saw for them is that they are too light. So when they need to ease the main, they have to ease a lot. So that way, if they ease without bang, the boom is going to be very high, and it's not really deep power in the boat, and losing the shape of the boat, of the sail.
In some of the puffs today, probably you would need some vang. I don't want it just uncleated because the boom will just go up. My only point is to be conscious of maybe sailing with too much vang, and we found a lot of instances that we pointed out, we both did, that we pointed out where we thought, wow, they have too much boom vang on. In the last race where I was asked to sail, thank you, we came around and jibed. I thought that was the right thing to do with how the course was set up. And go back one. I'll get back to it, but this is a good view. I don't know if that boom's all the way out. I don't think it is. I think the boom could go out further. But what I'm focusing on is how much curl or return there is in this top of the sail. And when you're sitting there, it's hard to tell if that's correct. It's just a tough thing to view. It's easy to view where we took this picture, but when you're sitting here, it's hard. And sometimes it's also hard to know if the boom's all the way out. So the forward crew really needs to make sure that that boom is all the way out, and even look to see if it's cleated or not. In terms of the center board, I usually raise the board on a day like today pretty high, maybe 80% of the way, 80% of the way up, so only 20% of the board in the water on a day like today.
Which is the rule of thumb for the bank on the down? Which is the rule of thumb for the bank? How
Boom banks. I'm sorry. Well, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've spent a lot of time. My wife and I spent a lot of time sailing our boats with this whole boom bang, and I learned it from Robert Scheit, who's a laser sailor and a star sailor, and he did a whole YouTube video on vang tension on the star, which he learned from the laser, and the lightning fits right kind of between those two boats. So what we did, my analysis is we went out for miles and had one vang to your eye look like it was right. That turned out, in the boat that always sailed with a lot less vang and sort of 10 knots of wind was always faster, letting the vang really, it appeared too loose to your eye. It was kind of flopping out there, but in reality it was faster. So I always tell people that most of the time we, and I was included, we all sail with too much boom vang. I even think this is too much boom vang. I think that the top needs to snap to leeward, snap downwind, and not be so rigid. I don't think there's good wind flow up here. It's just too tight, and the sail, the chord length of the sail is just too narrow, and much like that laser video. If you ever Google Robert Scheit, you can find it. There's one. This is even more clear how tight it is. And again, if you're looking here, it's hard to tell. But we noticed today that most of the time people are sailing with too much. The boat I got on, I completely eased it all the way off and made sure there was slack. And now I realized in the last race, it was a little lighter. So maybe in the middle race, that was probably the windiest. So maybe you needed a little bit of vang there, but this is the middle race because I'm on that boat over there. So maybe you can find a couple others.
The main was too tight.
The main sheet was too tight, right? That one, we took that picture because we didn't think the mainsail was out far enough. And you could tell there's too much vang on, how much return there is in the sail numbers. Yeah. That one looks better. We were going around to many boats suggesting they ease the boom vangs more. So that's just something to keep in mind. If it's windy, I'll just talk about it being windy for a moment because we probably won't see it. When I sailed the Worlds in Chile in 2005, it was very windy. Were you there, Juan, in 2005? Yeah. Vina del Mar, and you tipped over. I remember that. Almost died. Okay. Well, there was big waves, very windy, blowing 25 knots plus 30. And Tito won. And there was 9 races, and in every race finished downwind. It was always a downwind finish. And in 7 of those 9 races, we were leading the last mark. And on almost every race, Tito passed us downwind. So I interviewed Tito. I wrote an article for Sailing World, which is a magazine in the States. And I called Tito and I said, Tito, how did you just go so much faster than all of us downwind? And now it's easy to talk about his technique. He has his front crew hiking very hard to leeward, under the boom and under the sheet. He's hiking, straight leg hiking to leeward, with the vang in his or her hand, controlling the vang. But what's most important for the kids I say kids, respectfully, for the youth sailors to hear what I'm about to say, interviewing Tito, what I really learned is he spent months, literally months, practicing every day, not just on the Lightning, but in his laser on the lake closer to his house in Santiago. But on the Lightning, what he would do is, the only way you're going to get better at this stuff is not by listening to me up here or going out once in a while. Tito, who's won many championships, he would go out for many hours. When we sailed close to land. The further you went out, the windier it got. And what Tito would do is he went out 2 miles further than our race course with old sails and practiced sailing in 15-foot waves in 25 to 30 knots, almost like we had, but we had a little less. And that's how he perfected it. So when we all showed up, whoa, like, oh no, I just don't want to tip over. I just want to get down there. And Tito he was being aggressive. He was confident because he practiced it a ton. So there's absolutely no substitute, you 4 teams who are sailing in the world's in 2 months, to go practice and keep doing it because what'll happen is you don't know this consciously, but subconsciously what happens is you get so confident in what you're doing, especially in that body of water you're going to be racing in, that you just have other boats, you'll beat other boats just by the amount of confidence you have by practicing. You need to spend the time on the water. So when I interviewed Tito for that article, I do it. I sail like that now, and I see so many other boats doing the same thing. That's for heavier sailing. You want your front crew hiking to leeward. Just keeps the boat a lot more steady.
And are you comfortable with the height of the boom there? Does that look okay to you?
It does. I mean, this could be on the verge of too much twist. It could be getting high, but I can't really tell the angle of the boat. The boat might be heeling to weather. But I like that. I like it being looser than tighter in 10 knots of wind. One observation we had on the boat's tacking is we felt that the way you want to tack the Lightning, in my experience, is from close hauled to head to wind. You want that turn to be relatively slow. In other words, that rudder is a big brake back there. So whenever that rudder's turning, it's slowing you down. So when you go into attack, you want to do it real slow until you're almost head to wind. Then you want to give it a pretty good, you want to accelerate the speed of your turn. So you want to go slow and then fast. We witnessed just the opposite many times, where boats would go fast and then slow. Just the opposite. And so tomorrow, think about that. When I was sailing today, a lot of times I'd come in slow, accelerate the turn, and make sure you're on, you don't come up too high or too low. You got to practice it, coming out just right. And we were doing it today, getting better and better as the day went on. So that was an observation that I saw, that many boats tack too fast in the beginning. And the downside of that is it takes a while to reaccelerate. Does anyone have any questions on tacking? Slow until you're just about head to wind, and then accelerate the turn. Today we did not backwind the jib when it's lighter. When you want to backwind the jib when in 0 to 5 or 6 knots, just to help pull the bow around and not use. You want to use your rudder as little as possible all the time, because the lightning rudder, as I said before, is just a huge brake. Anytime that's not parallel with the boat, it's a brake. Does anyone? I was just going to mention one other thing, but then tomorrow, as I said in the beginning, I think taking this, if we're allowed to take this out to the dry sail area, yeah. After we have a cup of coffee, and I think it would be good to do some more interactive, where we're both here drawing together on the board. We're not going to do any protests. Only good stuff. So one last thing that I wanted another observation today, more from a strategy and tactics from watching everyone, and then I hopped into a race myself. I know this is, here. Hold on. This is for the youth teams as much as it is for anyone. So one thing I kind of noticed today, and then as I said, I hopped in and raced, and I had even a better appreciation for it. So these are ley lines. So those are ley lines, and as much as you all know this area of sailing better than me, but what I saw today was there's plenty of opportunity out there in terms of the wind shifting. The wind was not just steady. There was a lot. It was going through probably 10 degrees of oscillating back and forth. And what I noticed is it seemed like either side could do fine, but not so much in here. I think a strategy today would have been to say, let's work the middle left, or let's work the middle right. Let's start. Well, starting line's down here. Let's start, and we'll work aside. Or let's start and work aside. Because of the way the puffs were coming down, I think if you got in this zone, you'd be crossing the course too much. So in our race, the last race, we didn't have a great start, and we rounded up here, I don't know, in the middle, maybe 7th. And when we were rounding, I noticed the wind was kind of in a right phase. So we came around and jibed. Did a jibe set almost. Because the wind was in a right phase. So boats that were sailing that way were sailing out of phase. Okay? And we caught some distance. Then, again, the wind shifts just as much downwind as it does upwind. So then we caught some distance, which was good. And the leaders went around this mark. We went around this mark. We still felt the wind was still in a right-hand phase, which would... I think this mark was a little bit further upwind, but we were okay because the wind was in a right-hand phase. And we were sailing at about 268. Did everyone have a compass on board today? So on Port Tack, we were sailing about 265 was a good number. 260, very good number. 270, 275. So we came around here and we were in the low 70s. So I said, we sail a little bit, let's tack. And the puffs were we found the puffs to be righties, a right shift in the puff. And we were able to leverage off Juan and Julio, a couple. We were able to leverage off. Then, a little bit further up the track, the wind started shifting back. And they tacked. And then we immediately tacked. Because you need to keep your leverage. You need to keep your leverage there and sail in the lift attack. And we were also getting headed. So we tacked and we were at 260. So we were in phase. And we were able to sail back to the next shift, which happened to be, I was begging, please come back, near the ley line. We got up there, went from 260 to 272. We tacked and we crossed, almost one rounded ahead of us. We were in second. However, we went downwind. We jibed again because the wind was in a right-hand phase. And about 3/4 of the way downwind, the wind went left. And it really helped the boats that were to our right. So my only point of bringing this up is, and especially if it's like where I sail, we all think it's going to do something, and half the time it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And a day like today, there's a lot of opportunity out there, understanding what's going on with the wind shifts. I think I would have to sail here more to see if there's even more of a pattern, but it seemed like there was a decent pattern today. So tomorrow, if we get similar conditions, my recommendation is to sail upwind, get numbers, try to get a feel. You can sail the whole beat. There'll be time. And start developing a strategy for your beat. So you're not just pinballing off boats and tacking when you think you need clear air. Try to develop a strategy based on what the wind's doing. We did that today on the fly, but we did that nonetheless, and it really helped us. You want to sail the shortest distance to this mark, and just because other boats are doing something that seems different, it doesn't mean that they're always correct. So you want to know your numbers. I would think sailing here, numbers are critically important because of the breeze, the way the breeze is oscillating. Does anyone have any questions about that, or see anything differently than I saw today? Well, the only reason I have any feeling is because I was with two smart guys in a motorboat today, and they were telling me what the current was doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about the current. But because I was educated, I think current it sounds like it's critically important to the geographic area. I haven't spent enough time to know. I'm sure everyone can speak better to it than I, but I understand it's on the race course, and it's
what you just went over there, with the current favoring closer to land, is one thing, and the opposite, away from land.
Yeah, and today the current was going this way, right? It was going from upwind to downwind. Is that about right? So there would be less current on the port tack ley line than on the starboard tack ley line, yeah. And Juan, is that why you kept going into the left, because less current? Or is that the only way he knows where to go?
You know, most of the shifts.
That's the way to say Salinas.
It pays that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Pero la última regata la ganamos por la derecha.
Last race they wanted to go to the right side.
Partimos en la lancha, fuimos a la derecha y viramos con la racha del mar, del cerro, y cruzamos la flota.
After the start, they went to the right and then went to get a header and tacked, and they go down with the buff.
You know, we had an experience up the last beat of the last race where we went back right one more time, and it was completely the wrong thing to do. It got light, and we were about in the middle of the course, and we went back right, out to the right. Yes, and it was the wrong thing to do at that point in time. Yeah, and it just, it had been working for us, but in that moment it did not. You sailors, do you guys have any questions? None?
Wake up.
The angles on the downwind.
Pardon?
Which angles like downwind?
Oh, angles downwind? You know, it's a good question. I think that, again, everyone does it a little differently. I'm not a big, I don't pull my pole all the way back to hit the shrouds and go and I try to sail a little bit, yeah, not, try to sail a little bit more angle than having the pole all the way back as far as you can pull it and going down, aiming downwind. Unless it's windy enough. Your VMG angle, or your fastest angle to sail the course to get yourself to the mark the quickest. I think a day like today, to have the pole about 1 foot forward of the upper shroud, and then talk to your middle person and just keep asking how the pressure is. and based on the pressure, then the spinnaker trimmer really does a lot of the steering of the boat. He or she is saying, I got good pressure, you can bear off. Or it's light, you have to head up. So I would, obviously without any real big wind shifts, keep the pole about a foot or 18 inches or so forward of the upper shroud, and talk a lot about, and keep getting feedback from the spinnaker trimmer.
That is away from your 90-degree position.
Right. If it's windy, that's different. You could square back further and really go downwind. But a day like today, my experience has been, right here, you really want to make sure that clue is next to the pole. You don't want that. You see that? So you want to make sure that the guy or this guy is right next to the pole. Should be together, yeah.
David, the pole position in the downwind with this kind of wind, it should be like up or more down or in the middle. How do you?
Yeah, I try to. It sounds old, old school, but I try to keep the clues level. So that pole height's probably about right how it was today. But I usually try to keep it so that the two clues are about level.
What about light winds?
Light winds, similar. I try to, I'll lower the tip of the pole a little bit to match. I mean, if it's blowing very light, you don't want to go all the way, but.
That will give you a flatter sail. By bringing the flow down.
It would give you a flatter sail, but if it's already if the other one's drooping because it's so light, I just try to keep the sail symmetrical.
What do you think about that pole height for today? What do you need to do? You have to lower the pole height.
The topping lift? Yeah. Yeah, we didn't play around with it much because when I got on the boat, it seemed to be a good height. But I would just, I'm not a big fan personally of having it too high. I always err on it being too low or parallel or too low than too high. The only time I think it pays to be too high is the good old days when Juan would do triangles. Then it's okay to, when you're pulled to the head state tight reaching, it's good to have it high. But for reaching, right. But for what we're doing, 90 degrees and down.
David, when you go upwind, how flat should you keep your hull? Like, there's always questions regarding that. And how do you see the fleet? Our fleet doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Good questions. As I mentioned in the beginning, my observations were the fleet was sailing the boats today properly upwind. In other words, the heel angle to me looked good. That's a good picture. That's probably too much heel in that moment in time. But, you want to sail the boat more like that. It's tough because you want to sail the boat. That's a good shot. In theory, you want to sail the boat pretty flat. Even though that looks very flat, there's an angle of heel there. And you want to sail, we were doing it today, you always want to sail with the same angle of heel. Whether it's blowing 5 knots or 25 knots, you always have the same angle of heel all the time. There's never a time where you have, unless maybe it's blowing 2 knots and you're all sitting to leeward. you want to have the same angle of heel all the time. And when you're going in, when you're tacking, I don't think you should do any pre-roll, to heel the boat before you tack. You want to go into a tack at the same angle. Do you have some video of me sailing? Yeah, when I was sailing upwind? Whatever angle of heel I'm sailing, I'll just go from that angle of heel right into attack. So this is us today at one point. It's probably a little too much angle of heel. The reason I was sailing with probably a little bit more angle of heel than I normally would is because I was sailing heavier than I normally would today in that race. So I felt like I needed to generate more power. But, that could be taken right at a puff. It's hard to know in a still shot. Do you have any video? Yep. So it's kind of puffy, and we weren't always speaking the same language. So that's good. It was puffy. So puffs, the wind velocity kept changing. But that's pretty good angle of heel right there. We had never sailed with each other, so it was hard to know sometimes. It started to heel, and I didn't know what to say. But notice I'm just trying to keep the boat as steady as I can. That wind's changing around a lot, too. There's a lot of puffs. A little bit, yeah, definitely. Not today, no. Are you kidding me? We had a lot of weight on board. Oh, boy. He said he was sorry. Outhaul was? I was, I usually I sail so light that it just seemed like we had a lot of weight on. So, anyhow, that's a good angle of heel. Just, I could tell I'm not familiar with some of the things on the boat, so I was trying to. Do you get us tacking again here?
David, what is the position of each crew member in the boat inside during upwind? Because you want to go forward, you want to stay, close. You want to be separate.
You want to keep your crew as one bundle of weight together. Well, the forward crew should be just aft of the splash rail. Yeah. Just touching it. And then, so he or she sets the position, and then close. You got to touch each other. You got to. Yeah. See, this is. You want your crew weight to be as close together as possible. Downwind, I think still the same, but you're going to be further apart because I usually have the forward crew holding the boom out looking aft. And the middle person, I like he or she just to be comfortable, either sitting on the centerboard trunk or sitting on the seat in the boat.
Today I saw something today, not so much, the lightning, but I saw Luis sail with the
Downwind. Yep.
when it was windy, I saw he was actually watching it, so when is that?
Well, downwind sailing, heeling to weather, is a technique that a lot of very, very fast people, I think Juan does, others. It's usually good when it's light wind, because it gets the mainsail up in the air more. I personally don't do it like that, but a lot of successful fast people do. Is that video or is that still? I thought these kids sailed really well in terms of sailing the boat flat. Enough. They have enough backstay or outhaul on. Sails look good. They're sailing the boat pretty flat.
When you go all the way, which telltales you use the most?
Those right there. Lower ones. Yeah. 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 I mean, I think for the skippers, I'm pretty much glued on those telltales. I'm just.
Esta es la foto que yo te digo, cuando me tocaba hacer el back, era la sección del cable. Totalmente adelante no hay saco. Entonces decía, suéltale, o estaba demasiado pesado el cable. Pero no tiene nada de saco enfoque. No está, it's without sack that the jib. We were explaining that they cannot point high, so I was telling them that he is all the back side. They kind of just a little bit, and maybe that's making a very big effect on the high pointing.
Play that a little bit longer.
Is there an order to put the wire first and then the backstay, or it doesn't matter? When you come down the leeward mark?
Leeward mark?
Yeah, after you round the leeward mark?
Yeah.
Is there an order to put first the wire and then the backstay?
Well, the wire you should do before the leeward mark. Get the wire on and to your mark. Get that set before you turn upwind. And then backstay can be the last thing. But you want to get the wire set before you turn upwind. Does anyone have any other questions? So tomorrow, like I said, we can continue this out in the sunshine outside, and we can be more interactive together on the whiteboard. Okay? Good.
Thanks a lot, baby. That was good stuff.